I want to ask you 3 very difficult questions, but I promise to ask them in the softest way possible, because my goal is not to accuse or corner you, but to shine a clear light on a dangerous and insidious trap. A trap that kept me in prison for decades and continues to imprison countless other people. And many are completely oblivious to it. The first question, is it possible you drink more than you should? When you look back at the past week or month, has the amount you've consumed crept past the limits you promised yourself? Maybe you poured just one more the night before and you didn't even notice until you tallied it up. The second question, have you already tried to regulate your drinking? Have you made rules? Only wine. No drinking before 5 p.m. Just 2. Never on school nights. But you found yourself failing again and again. You might remember making those rules with a real sense of determination, even relief believing you'd finally solve the problem. But a week later, the boundary shifts. The exception becomes the new rule, and the rules multiply until they're impossible to track, and you're back where you started. And the third question, the big one, because you still have your job, your family is intact, and you still pay the bills, have you convinced yourself that you're still okay? In other words, do you use your ability to function as proof that you don't have a problem? Do you point to the mortgage being paid, the promotions that you've earned, the fact your kids are cared for, as evidence that your drinking is under control? If those questions make you squirm, if you dismiss them out of hand with a self-protective no, I need you to know something. For far too many of us, myself included, the real answer was yes. And if the answer is yes, you may be a functional alcoholic. And this video is for you. Please stay with me. For nearly 20 years of my early career, I lived that contradiction. I was a physician practicing emergency medicine, caring for patients, specifically alcoholics, every day, while being afflicted with the very disease I was treating. My ability to perform in a demanding, visible profession provided the perfect camouflage. Back then, the ability to keep it together felt like proof of my resilience. I could handle double shifts, complex cases, and family obligations. To the outside world, I was an overachiever. Inside, I was in a slow-motion collapse. My success, the very thing I was proud of, became my disguise, my shield, and ultimately, my prison. Being highly functional doesn't just keep you hidden from the world, it keeps you trapped in a life of mere survival, preventing you from discovering a life where you could truly flourish. In this video, I'll share how I and many others escaped this cage. But before we go further, please subscribe to Second Act Sobriety, give this video a like, and share it to help us grow the community. You never know who might need to hear this. Now, the term functional alcoholic often carries a twisted sense of pride or minimization. Back in my drinking days, if someone had called me one, I probably would have quipped, well, that's better than being non-functional. That glibness is the sound of the trap slamming shut. It's the voice of self-deception leveraging job, family, and income to maintain an unsustainable status quo. During my last 2 decades of drinking, I knew acutely that my relationship with alcohol was a profound problem. Yet the final half-dozen years became a miserable endurance contest, kind of like playing a childhood game of hot lava, jumping frantically from one safe spot to the next. Between episodes of being loaded, I fulfilled my perceived obligations. I showed up at work on time, attended family functions. I attended the kids' soccer games. Consistency in external performance was camouflage. But consistency became harder to maintain. While I fought to deny I was becoming less reliable, I clung to my central argument. As long as I was earning an income, going to work, and keeping my creditors at bay, I was okay. Drinking seemed to be at the root of many broken promises and skipped appointments, but the insidious voice of functional alcoholism whispered, it's not bad enough. Therefore, you don't need to stop entirely. So the drastic step of stopping was postponed again and again, even as I repeatedly violated my own boundaries. Here's the irony. The very skills that make you high-functioning, disciplined, intelligent, work ethic, become the tools you use to keep the problem hidden. You put your energy into maintaining appearances instead of building a better life. Every ounce of mental bandwidth goes toward keeping the juggling act going. And because you're so busy juggling, you never notice how small your world is becoming. When I look back now over nearly 3 decades of an authentic life free from alcohol and other drugs, I see the tragedy of functionality. My continued use had severely curtailed my options, boxing me into a corner. I believed I had only 2 paths: to continue the exhausting illusion of being functional or surrender completely to the bottle, a fate that I feared and despised. It never occurred to me that a third option existed, an authentic, flourishing life without chemicals. Settling for functionality kept me from even imagining it. Functionality is defined by what you don't lose: job, house, family. Flourishing is defined by what you gain: authenticity, connection, and potential. Daily drinking inevitably leads to a massive limitation on returns because so much time and mental energy are dedicated to maintaining the facade, recovering from the last drunk, or planning the next one. You end up putting the absolute minimum into your life and getting the minimum back. Before I quit drinking, I constantly felt a crushing deficit of time. There weren't enough hours in the day to pursue things of my own choosing, hobbies, friendships, and the quiet joy of doing something for its own sake. My life lacked the potential to flourish because every resource was allocated to merely functioning. Think of it this way. A functional life is like treading water. You're upright, your head is above the surface, and people on the shore think you're fine. But all your energy is spent just staying afloat. A flourishing life is like swimming wherever you want to go. The difference is enormous, but invisible when you're the one in the middle of the water. This realization only became visible to me after a brief period of abstinence. That's the first crucial step. It's the gateway to change. For me, it required reaching what most people would call a bottom, a convergence of serious consequences that wasn't pretty. I didn't choose sobriety as a pathway to freedom. No, I hoped sobriety would be a hideout when the alternative was annihilation. Even so, within days of stopping alcohol, it became obvious that I was better off not drinking. Yet, I still found myself thinking, even plotting, to have another drink once I was out from under this mess. That's the central question anyone afflicted with this disease must face. Why am I planning to return to the very thing that's destroying me? Answering it requires an entirely new way of life. As I began stacking weeks, then months, without a drink or drug, the fallacy of my functional life crumbled. My old benchmark of success, merely showing up for work, was a far cry from being the doctor I aspired to be. Staying in relationships out of fear rather than connection showed me that functionality was synonymous with fear, complacency, and settling. I'm eternally grateful that I didn't settle for a life that was merely functional, a life defined by the bare minimum of effort. When you finally stop, even begrudgingly, the fog lifts just enough for you to see how small your life is becoming. That glimpse can be terrifying, but it's also the first taste of freedom. The trap of functional alcoholic is especially dangerous because it reinforces the belief that you don't need help. Change is hard and change is scary. Most of us never overcome our inertia or our powerful urge to stick with the familiar. Considering change through therapy, support groups, treatment, it can feel like a profound intrusion. That hostile view of help entrenches us further, pushing true recovery away. But help exists now just as it did then for anyone whose drinking or drug use has become a threat to living their best life, or any life at all. Support groups, medical care, counseling, peer communities, these aren't punishments, they're invitations. invitations to discover the life you could be living. So let's get practical. What does a flourishing, sober life look like? It doesn't mean life becomes easy or perfect. It means you have time and energy for things you choose to do, not just the stuff you have to do. It means freedom to try new things, to fail, to succeed, to explore new relationships and interests without the fog of intoxication. It means being fully present at your kids' soccer games because you want to be there, not because you're white-knuckling your way through another obligation. It means discovering talents or passions you didn't even know you had because all your mental real estate was once devoted to managing alcohol. So I'll end this where I began, with a question. Is alcohol taking from you more than it's giving? If the answer is yes, but you're convinced you're okay because you haven't lost your job or hit some dramatic rock bottom, then I urge you, do not settle for a functional life. Even at its best, it's nothing more than a constant, exhausting endurance contest. Accepting functionality as your destiny will absolutely prevent you from discovering the life where you have the true potential to flourish. The path to flourishing begins when the fallacy of function crumbles. It begins with that first necessary step of abstinence. I'm Dr. Donald Crowe, and if anything I've said has resonated with you, or if you feel that internal squirming I mentioned from the start, I hope you'll choose the path of potential. Please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, and comment below. And take a few minutes right now to watch this video that tells exactly what to expect in the first 30 days of sobriety. Knowing what's coming helps dismantle the fear that keeps you trapped. Remember, giving up drinking does not mean giving up anything real. It means opening the door to the life you deserve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.